Today on Hitch20.
He would imply it in your mind. You knew there was something violent went on.
Hollywood director Alfred Hitchcock does something revolutionary. He directs television.
That's him.
Much has been said about the 52 feature films that Hitchcock directed, but nobody talks about the 20 television episodes he also directed. The Hitch20.
A television show, like a souffle, reflects the taste of the person who selects and mixes the ingredients. It matters a great deal, for example, whether onions or garlic are used, and when the arsenic is added. Alfred Hitchcock.
It was 1955. Television was still in its infancy, but it was so popular, half of the homes in the United States already had one. Iconic film director Alfred Hitchcock decided to jump into this new form of home entertainment and start his own series. By this time, at the age of 54, he had already directed 43 feature films. He'd been a directing legend in Europe, a pioneer when sound first came to the screen, and had spent a decade reshaping Hollywood suspense. It's not surprising that his cinematic style carried over into his first attempt at television. For this new series, called Alfred Hitchcock Presents, he brought in longtime friend Joan Harrison, the writer of many of his classics in the 40s. Harrison would produce the series, overseeing operations and hiring writers and directors for the weekly episodes. The debut episode, Revenge, would be directed by Hitchcock himself. It is the first of 20 episodes of television that Hitchcock personally directed with his magic touch. In our docu-series, we'll explore each of these 20 forgotten gems of Alfred Hitchcock. We'll ask filmmakers and scholars alike to join us on our journey of discovery. We'll examine his camera style, his visual language, his story tendencies, and dig deeper than anyone has into his methods of creating suspense. Along the way, we hope to uncover new techniques that today's directors can implement into their own films. Our first stop is Revenge.
Look at the opening sequence of Revenge. First we see the ocean and the highway going by the ocean and some trailers. And then there's this neat shot. It's a low shot and you see the front of the car, kind of foreboding, kind of saying there's something going to happen here. He's established that this is a nice, happy community, but something's not quite right.
Hitchcock was very interested in the interplay between moods and creating ironies between laughter and tension. He said, the more happy-go-lucky the setting, the greater kick you get from the sudden introduction of drama. He said directors should focus first on the fripperies of people and the lightness with which they live. This is how he made sure the audience liked the characters before they were thrown into a suspenseful situation. Just before the crisis appears in Revenge, Hitchcock spends extra time on Carl's journey home and his comical struggle with the shopping bags.
Elsa! Hey, I'm home. Hey, let me in!
So Hitchcock was great at kind of letting the audience know enough information where we were kind of ahead of the characters, but at the same time, we related with the characters. We felt what the characters felt.
One thing Hitchcock was known for was being able to lead the audience through a location, guiding and controlling their knowledge. This puts the audience into the role of actively exploring, looking for clues, in this case, finding the alarm clock. When we actually do find it, we feel a sense of payoff. We are then thankful that this man finally turns it off, a clever way of manipulating our allegiance from the very beginning. Casting is also a key to audience manipulation. A good director finds actors that not only bring a character to life, but someone who can lure the audience.
And Vera Miles was a very beautiful blonde who Hitchcock was hoping to replace Grace Kelly, who had just married Princess Rainier of Monaco and had moved to Principality. So there was a slot vacant for the Hitchcock blonde. Hitchcock hoped that Vera Miles would take Kelly's place and literally started to groom her for stardom.
He tried her out on TV, and it worked out so well that he signed her to a 5-year exclusive contract on the spot.
Hitchcock believed that audiences of his time were more receptive to blonde women for the purposes of suspense. He said blondes had an air of mystery and unpredictability. It was a strategic choice, so his audiences would find it easier to develop curiosity and sympathy for the character.
But what is undoubtable from her very first role with Hitchcock in Revenge is that fierce intelligence and beauty, which is seldom witnessed in many Hitchcock females, but absolutely encapsulated by Vera Miles' character.
To further connect audience with character, Hitchcock's camera would follow the eyes. In his point-of-view sequences, a character sees something off screen. He cuts to it, and then he cuts back for the reaction shot. This allows the audience to internalize the character's curiosities and desires. Up until this point, Mrs. Ferguson has built trust in the audience. But in this scene, her glances and reactions generate suspicion that she might actually be hiding something.
It's almost as if she wants to say something, maybe warn her, like, you shouldn't dress like this out in the open. But she certainly shows her disapproval, and that's a little bit of foreshadowing right there.
The underlying unease we feel is there because following our objectifying of Vera Miles in her bathing suit, we're then implicated in the crime of her assault.
One thing about this episode that I really enjoy is you almost get fooled because we believe that Elsa is not crazy when she sees the guy. And Carl goes in, you're almost cheering him on like, yeah, get that guy, get that guy. And at that moment, at the end of the movie, when she sees another person, we don't even see that person. She just looks off to the side of the road and says, there he is, there he is. At that moment, we feel like Carl feels like, oh no, I really screwed up this time.
Just like a painter chooses brushes and colors, directors must find the best shots to convey the emotions they want the audience to feel. Hitchcock's cinematic language emphasizes hands, feet, and objects. Feet give us a sense of place and safety, in this case a lack of safety. Hands can show anxiety and shock. She clings to the flower in paralyzing fear. As Carl's hands touch and hold the murder weapon, we can feel his uneasiness.
One of my favorite scenes is the kill scene in this. Hitchcock didn't like to show violence, so he would imply it in your mind. You knew there was something violent went on, but he didn't have to show you. Like in today's movies, you'll see the blood and the gore and the actual killing. The scene here shows Carl going into the hotel room of the salesman, and we see the hefty wrench in his hand. He has a hefty open-end wrench, and he opens the door, and we're almost voyeuristically looking in. We're looking through the door, and as he steps through, we're looking in the mirror of the bureau. And then they kind of walk out of frame, and then you see the shadow of Carl's arm going way up 4 times.
By using this long, single take, Hitchcock is able to hold on to the tension of the moment. It creates a sense of chilling realism. The lack of music score allows us to hear the upbeat music from the hotel lobby, creating an ironic contrast, again, happy versus serious. It might seem counterintuitive, but an important Hitchcock editing technique is knowing when not to cut. Lingering on a single shot maintains a feeling of tension. In this case, it intensifies the feeling of romance between Carl and Elsa. Cutting away to another angle would immediately dissipate that feeling. Later in the episode, Elsa is in a state of shock, and Hitchcock holds the extreme close-up on her face, so we feel her uncomfortable intensity to the fullest.
I screamed. I choked.
She suffers a breakdown, and then she's lost in a fog of depression. And we see several signature Hitchcock shots, close-ups of her face frozen, her eyes gone cold, staring into nothingness.
Some other techniques to look for in this episode are the sound of a ticking clock to enhance tension, and a profile shot of Vera Miles, a great angle to use to show someone is lying or suspicious. Revenge is number 1 on our journey, already demonstrating a strong Hitchcockian touch. With its quirky characters, high tension, and a clever twist, it can surely help directors of today in their choices relating to the emotion of visual storytelling.